Hey gang, this is Deke McClellan. Welcome to Deke's Techniques. Now this week we're back inside Adobe Illustrator and I'm going to show you how to create custom starbursts. Now in case you're thinking custom starburst, what in the world, why would I want that? And so forth. Bear in mind I'm not talking about the candy. I'm talking about this stuff right here. Check that guy out. That's not something you just draw inside of Illustrator. That's something you make happen. You want another example? Look at this one here. Is that not the most outrageous starburst you've ever seen in your entire life? 2 different techniques inside one movie. How wonderful is that? Here, let me show you how it works. All right, let's see how to create custom starbursts inside of Illustrator. Now, you start things off by drawing a star. And you can draw a star by clicking and holding on the rectangle tool inside the toolbox and choosing the star tool from the flyout menu. And then you draw the star from the center outward like so. And if this is the first time you're using the tool, then you'll create a 5-pointed star. To add points to the star as you're drawing it, I still have the mouse button down, you press the up arrow key. And I'm looking for a 12-pointed star, so I'll keep pressing that up arrow key until I get the desired result. And you can also, by the way, press and hold the space bar in order to move that star around as you're drawing it. Once you get it into the desired location, you go ahead and release the mouse button and you'll draw a star like so. Now, I've already drawn a star in advance, so I'm going to press the backspace key or the delete key on the Mac in order to get rid of that star. And I'll switch to my black arrow tool and I'll click on the star outline in order to select it. It's a star filled with a radial gradient, by the way, that starts with a bright red and ends with a duller red toward the outside. Now, to customize this star, that is one way to work, is to go up to the Effect menu and choose Distort and Transform, which gives you access to what I call the path wigglers. And there's a bunch of different path wiggling varieties here. I'm going to start things off with Roughen, and we're just going to roughen up the star by switching to Absolute so that we can roughen the star according to units of measure, in my case, points. And I'm going to take the size of that roughening up to 9. And so I can see what I'm doing. I'll turn on the preview checkbox, and you can see that you're adding this roughness to the path outline. I'll leave detail set to 10 per inch, and then I'll change the points from corner to smooth, like so. And that just gives us a little variation in the star outline that we can exploit with our next effect. So I'll go ahead and click the OK button in order to apply that modification. Notice that we're not harming the actual path outline. This is a virtual so-called dynamic adjustment that will update on the fly. Now I'll go up to the Effect menu, choose Distort and Transform once again, and choose Pucker and Bloat. And make sure to turn on the preview checkbox inside this dialog box so you can see what you're doing. Now notice if you drag this slider triangle slightly over to the right, don't go too far with it, then you'll add these kind of flower petals to the outside of this star outline, and that's what's known as a bloat inside of Illustrator. If you want to convert those flower petals to spikes, then you go with a pucker instead, and you drag this slider triangle over to the left-hand side, and you'll get a negative value, which is a pucker value. So negative is pucker, positive is bloat. I'm going to take this value over to about negative 30, actually looks pretty good. And then, once I have that value dialed in, I'll go ahead and click OK in order to apply that modification. All right, if you ask me, that looks pretty good. And if you want to check out what the starburst looks like without this star path outline in the way, you can press Control-H or Command-H on the Mac in order to hide that path outline. Now go over to the Appearance panel, which you can get by either clicking on the word Appearance if you see it over in the right side of the window, or you can go to the Window menu and choose Appearance in order to bring up that panel. And you'll see that you have 2 dynamic effects applied to the selected path outline, which means you can modify those effects after applying them. So I'll go ahead and click on Roughen, and let's say I decide to take this detail value up to 18 per inch. That is 18 little jags per inch of path outline. I'll turn on the preview checkbox so I can see what kind of difference it makes, and it does add some more spikiness. I'll click OK. If I want to increase the size of those spikes, I'll click on Pucker and Bloat in order to bring up this dialog box along with my previously applied value. And I'll change that value to negative 200%. And you end up with this extreme starburst effect. So you have all kinds of opportunities to edit these path outlines. I'll click OK in order to apply that effect. All right, let's see another way to go. I'm going to switch over to this illustration here. And I'll switch over to the Layers panel, scroll down to the bottom. And I'll turn on my Lone Star layer right there, and I'm going to lock down the Shooting Star layer by clicking in the lock icon for it. That way I don't mess up that shooting star that I created in a previous movie. And I'll click on this yellow path outline that represents the star in order to select it. And then I'll go up to the Edit menu and choose the Copy command so I can retrieve it later. Of course, you can also press Control-C, Command-C on the Mac. And another way to convert this path outline into a custom starburst, this is actually in many ways an easier way to work, but it's also a static operation, meaning that you can't modify your settings later. And you do so with a tool. Go over, if you're working inside of Illustrator CS5, you go to the With tool, which is a new tool inside the program, click and hold, and then from the flyout menu, go ahead and select the Crystallize tool, second from the bottom. Then double-click on that Crystallize tool icon there in the toolbox, and let's change the width value and the height value to 700 points. Then click OK. And that gives you a big cursor like this. And now I'm going to click right there in the center of the star, click and hold in order to create that custom starburst, click and hold again in order to customize it further. And if you want to go even further, just give it another little click and see what you come up with. All right, let's change the opacity value up here in the control panel to 25%. And then I'll go up to the Edit menu and choose Paste in Front. You can also press Control-F, Command-F on the Mac to retrieve that original star in its original position like so. And let's go ahead and click inside it as well to create yet another custom variation of that starburst. That looks good to me. I'll change its opacity to 50% up here in the control panel. And then I'll press Control-F or Command-F again in order to create yet another copy of that star. And I'll double-click on the Crystallize tool here inside the toolbox. And I'm going to change the width and height values to 200 points this time around. Click OK. And then with this smaller cursor, I'll just click and hold like so in order to create kind of a mini starburst. Now let's blend between them by switching over to the black arrow tool up here at the top of the toolbox. And I'm going to Alt-click or Option-click on the lone star layer, and that will select the entire contents of that layer, all three of those custom starbursts. So that's an Alt-click or an Option-click on the layer itself there in the Layers panel. Then go up to the Object menu, choose Blend, and choose Make. And that'll go ahead and blend between those star shapes like so. My final step is going to be to find the opacity value up there in the control panel and reduce the opacity of all three of these shapes together to 70%. And then click off the paths in order to deselect them. And so there you have it, two different ways to create a custom starburst, one using dynamic effects available from the Effect menu, and the other as a static modification using the Crystallize tool here inside Illustrator.